Unit 3 Development 3.2 Content Objective. Compare and contrast the development of LDCs and MDCs. Your ICANN statements: 1. Explain key HDI characteristics of more developed countries. 2. State the distribution of more developed countries. 3. Explain key Human Development Index characteristics of less developed countries. 4. State the distribution of less developed countries. And then 5th is use Wallerstein's economic systems theory to explain the distribution of less developed countries and more developed countries. What are world MDCs? They're found in 5 particular regions. North America, reason being, largest consumer market and food exporter, and one of the largest GDPs in the world. Europe contains many countries in high HDIs because of many factors that fall under economic factors, demographic, and social factors. Europe has universal health care. They have some of the highest exporting and importing countries in the world. And then they also have large urbanization rates. Russia is the transition from a communist to a market economy, but has had some trouble because of government corruption. And Japan industrialized in the early 1900s, and it has a heavy investment in education and training. And then they're known as the region for as a core for or hearth for technological products since the 1980s, and then Oceania with Australia and New Zealand because of their connection with the United Kingdom. Developing countries or newly industrialized countries, those that have recently industrialized. Latin America in the 1980s. Latin America had favorable reason for developing because they had high urbanization rates, uncommon of most LDC regions. However, they have the downfall of a large income gap between social classes. East Asia, in the late 1990s, with the opening of the free market and the special economic zones of Macau, Hong Kong, and Guangzhou, and then large labor force, which they have the largest site factors in the world in China. And then Southwest Asia, because of their deposits of oil and petroleum, and many people rely on the exports of petroleum and oil from Southwest Asian countries. We can see the disparity of Latin America, or the economic gap. Favelas would be common in poor makeshift housing that's found in Brazil, and then high income housing with their recreational activity. And again, income gap. Again, China, one of the largest exporters of manufactured goods in the world. They were the largest manufacturer in the last few years. But the coronavirus has led to a downturn in the global economy. And that shows the exporting of the United Arab Emirates. That's led to tremendous growth, economic growth, and infrastructural growth of the United Arab Emirates. World less developed countries, Southeast Asia, because of cheap labor, which is stimulating manufacturing. Many Southeast Asian countries are actually being outsourced from China. And then Central Asia, because of new discoveries of oil and other resources found in Central Asian countries, specifically Kazakhstan. South Asia, we have the second fastest growing economy in India. And Sub-Saharan Africa, because of the large amounts of mineral, but the process is very slow because of colonial and influence and political instability. And here shows our map of the MDCs and LDCs. This is known as the north-south split theory, where you see the red line going along the 30-degree north parallel. It shows countries that are above it as being developed, and countries that are below it are less developed, with the outlier being Oceania, Australia, and New Zealand. Rostov's model has 5 stages. This is the stage of economic development, not of development like HDI, but economic development. The 5 stages: first is a traditional society. They're mostly primary economic sectors, subsistent farmers, so they provide for their family, agricultural production. Precondition for takeoff: there's a few small investments into technology and infrastructure, and usually there's a small group of people that head that innovation and lead to technological advancement or infrastructural advancement. Takeoff is when you see growth in industrial manufacturing and output and exchange in the global economy. And drive for maturity is when you begin to see growth in other sectors such as tertiary sector and more skilled secondary sectors. And then the final stage would be age of mass consumption, according to Rosdown. This is when there's mass consumption of consumer goods, and then also there's high-tech production. Rostow's theory is slightly different than Wallerstein's economic systems theory. Wallerstein's economic systems theory is known as the core periphery model. He actually built on the core periphery model. So the core is going to be countries that have higher education, technology, and infrastructure. And with that, there will be higher wages, higher economic sectors, and then also pensions or benefits for employees. And then also we'll see in the core mass consumption, which would correlate with Rostow's 5th stage. The periphery is LDC's primary economic sector, farmers, a lot of political instability, economic inequality, and it, again, geographers like this because it explains the relationship of place in the world. And then most recently, the emergence of the semi-periphery are the newly industrialized countries. And those countries now would be in the 3rd stage of Rostow's, where they're producing, they have a niche in industrial manufacturing, and they're a major exporter of industrial manufactured consumer goods. But most of the consumption goes to the core. All right. That'll take us to the end.